Over here. Hey y'all, happy Thursday. It is I think we're gonna call these integration Thursdays. We're integrating. See, black and white, black and white. Color, we got some color. It's a white out behind us. But it's a beautiful day in Vilcabamba. Not too sunny, not too the UV rays have been kind of so I've been feeling it. That's why I've got a lot more skin because my skin is like kind of burn. But we wanted to talk about concept for this gathering together was really to talk about my um, journey into the medicine and then the interpretation and the integration of that so I can use that not just for, oh, those are pretty pictures and I had great Mandelbrats and y'all know I love my Mandelbrats, but to really look at this and go, okay, what are we trying to get from this information? And my training in the Oracle School in Arts was to go to Delphi and go and see what the oracles did. And they sat over a tall stool and inhaled ethylene. And with the help of the priests, were able to interpret what was that chick saying. And so, because it was a job that was given to young women as well as old women, it was a respected role for the community, but you couldn't do it alone. You just didn't go up and go, hey, Oracle, what's up? And my work has been to look at what have we learned from the past that we can use in the future so we don't make the mistakes and repeat them. And I just happened to, not just happened, the universe landed me right here next to what I call my priest in this role. And he's really many more things than that. And his story is much more exciting than mine.
We all have our stories.
Well,
They're all exciting in their own way.
so I wanted to introduce you to Gary Morgan.
Hello.
And he really is a green man. And then nature speaks through him and speaks to him. And that's been a blessing to be, and he's a chef. This is why we got the kitchen in the background.
Chef, gardener, and medicine man.
Chef, gardener, and medicine man. That's a nice combination to come across in these days.
Well, they all work well together.
They do. They do. So we wanted to, first I want to tell you a story. And it's an interesting thing to me to just use these tools. And I didn't really get high until I was 50. So I was like, oh, I did it 16, but I was like, I had to go to school, didn't have time for that. And at 50, I kind of went, oh, there's more I can learn from this. And I was encouraged to use it to develop my creative side. And I know jack about jack until I did learn about ayahuasca, and I was introduced to it after the Oracle job kind of dropped into my lap. Then I went, oh, I'm supposed to use it. Okay, y'all got some tools to help me look down the path. And that was profound. And I saw visions I still don't quite understand. But year after year, and I don't do it often because it takes a while to make this stuff make sense. And I have found, me, I'm kind of the Cliff Notes kind of gal. I'm like, I ain't got 40 years to meditate. I got to hurry up and get this done and figure this stuff out. And it was the focus of, okay, what can I understand quickly and not quickly, but make sense of and not spend 12 hours in San Pedro. And I was like, no, please, I can't do that. And overnight, lay it on the floor. I'm like, I'm old, y'all. I need a bed on a regular basis. So I said, no, let's try something else. And so I was given a gift, mimosa pudica, which we grew on the farm in Thailand. And so mimosa pudica was my go-to, which is called a shy plant, which is the leaves that close up when you touch them. And everything on the planet has some form of DMT in it, and this just has a higher percentages of it. And so we're able to use it to look in. And it's like, I saw the last Mimsy the other night, and there's a scene in the movie where the girl goes, I need to see," and this orb shows up, and she would stick her hand in it. It would just kind of pixelize her hand.
Excellent.
And I went, it kind of looked familiar. And so she went, I need to see. And she sticks her head in the pixelization bubble. And then she can see the story of their past and how they got here. And so I went, oh, that's a nice way to mirror that kind of experience. So for my journey, I always see the Mandelbrot as that kind of color thing, but usually it's an opening or an awakening. However, this time around, for me, it was in the darkness came the clarity of you'll find the answers you're looking for in darkness. And I was like, oh, and then it was the ending because it doesn't last long and it's a short experience. And it's way too short, in my opinion, but it's okay, it works. And the ending of it allowed a couple of physical experiences, and that was most intense in my body because it's going through changes, painful some of it, and my energy levels have been very difficult to maintain. Um, the challenge was to make sense of what I'm seeing, and I'd ask Gary to be my guide with me and take me through the process. Um, and at one point, he touched me, and I could feel life coming up through my body, and it was just like little, what did I say? Little phyllises. You know, a phyllis is a new growth, and so I saw these little limbs come up with little green bulbs on them, and it was just like coming back into this reality was just coming back alive. And it wasn't fun, but it was beautiful. And the colors were the ones that I kept going, oh, I'm going to be locked into this reality again by the beauty of the color. And it was so anchoring and so real and so, yes, okay, I got to accept it because it is what I love most about this reality. It's the color and the beauty of nature and its um, hold upon me. What I took from that was just knowing that it was, I know the answers were still in the darkness that I wasn't ready to look at. I was like, oh, okay, we're not done. And it was part of that in my physical. It's been a question of like, all right, well, it's been going on for 2 months. I'm not feeling strong. I'm feeling weak. And it's like, what is it left to look at? And what do I need to focus on next? And I said, okay, let me ask the guy who can look at that stuff a little more and go. So I wanted to sit and go, all right, I did my job and I looked in.
Right.
And I looked in and saw myself. And then I said, what else do I need to pay attention to?
Well, you know that I look at this stuff very differently than many other people. I'm not about all these other kind of ideas that people have about what their visions actually are to them, and as I say, you're not really locked into anything. Everything that you experience is actually it's a manifestation of what's already within you, and that's what any of these have to do. Most of this stuff, also, I just want to quickly address just the word medicine. It's a very overused word as far as I'm concerned. These are tools. These are just tools, and they're tools to help you identify your other tools and how to actually claim them and learn to master them. And so when you're stepping into the darkness, that is where all of our real tools are. Our tools are within us. Our emotional body is actually, it's what houses our tools. And most of us have actually no command over our emotional bodies. And so they're very feral, wild, and I think I mentioned before. Anger is just an example. You can destroy an entire room of people with anger, or you can learn how to command it, and learn how to master that emotion and direct it exactly where it needs to go, um, without demeaning, without hurting another person, but making it very, very clear that, you know, they've crossed a line into
Yeah.
your life where that's not going to be acceptable.
Yeah.
But when we look at these particular things, I don't necessarily consider DMT a medicine in and of itself. Smoking it, I see it as it's a tool. Uh, it's it's a tool just to really kind of go in and see the greater aspect of yourself. Some people can have you know, temporal distortion where, you know, I've actually gone in and felt like I've been there for 5 hours and come back and really not even 3 minutes have passed. So you know, for each person it's very, very different, and that's the thing also, is that there's no patent or empirical
Mhm.
manner in which any of this works. Each person is an individual, each person is their own vibration. And when we begin to understand that what these particular chemicals do within our system, uh, it all comes out of your own awareness, comes out of your own experience, your own. And many of these things you actually don't realize you have deep inside of you, and it's brought up like in a dream state,
Yeah.
and it's made to have you look deeply. But none of this work in any capacity, the true work. I mean, yes, as I said once before, you know, many of these plants have the ability to actually help you get over certain disorders, cancer and PTSD, and work on Parkinson's and other things like that. Lots of things have been shown. Some of these plants do assist with that, but primarily, um, you're your own healer, you're your own worker, you have to do your own thing, and you can't do it in an altered state. You have to do it in real life. You have to begin to realize who your real teachers are. Your teachers are the very people around you, the very things that you're creating around you based on all of your decisions. It's not, and this is where the real work has to start. I mean, all these other things are doing are illuminating what is within you. And to go in and try and find answers often isn't necessarily the best quest, I think, because what happens is we end up finding one thing within the observable space, but once we bring it back into the real world, it's actually a very different thing. And how to actually apply that. So in your case, you know, as you were going in, you know, I mentioned to you, you know, one of the things that we do, one of the things I noticed in your process was you immediately went into the analyzation of what was happening. And that's actually rather defeatist, because you're allowing your brain, which is simply a receiver, it does not actually, it doesn't have the capacity to understand. And what you're getting from these other experiences, ayahuasca, San Pedro, DMT, mushroom, many of the time, much of the time, they're way outside of language. But your brain really wants to describe it and limit it, and also does not want to be exposed. You know, your ego does not want any exposure to its own weaknesses and fallibilities, which, you know, oftentimes you're kind of forced to look at. In some of these states,
ego.
Yeah, the ego state is, well, especially in ayahuasca, it's put on hold while you're in that space. And that does not mean your ego will not come back and bloom extra big when you come out of it, because of what you think you saw, what you think you experienced, what you think is real. And I'm somebody who really loves to crush the illusion, destroy the fantasy, you know, take away the illusion of what you think you're experiencing. Because it really does come back down to the practical. It comes back down to the real life. What you're doing and how you're living doesn't happen in an altered state. It happens in reality. And that's where you have to do the work. And so when you walked into the darkness and saw that darkness, but you were very connected to the color. It showed me also at that time that you you really don't want to go into the darkness too much. You want to hold the color because the color is, oh, that's nice. But we live in a glitter world, and right now everything's plastic and shiny is, it's alluring. We want to go and sit and look. Ooh, look, it's so shiny. But really, if you want to get to your actual power, you have to go through your own darkness. You have to go through the parts of yourself that you don't like, that you don't feel like you actually have any command over. That you feel like you're out of control. And as I've said before to you, there's no such thing as control. There's only command. And so it's about learning to
Good
command.
point. There's no such thing as control, only command.
Right. And also in this state, as you're doing that, analyzation, that is a form of control. And you're trying to control a situation that is trying to ask you, step out of yourself. You wanted to step out of yourself anyway. You want to go on a DMT experience. You were asking to step out of yourself. So I often will tell people as they go in as an observer, but don't describe it. Don't detail it. Observe it. Don't name it. Don't give it any. Don't let your brain attach anything to it. Let it just simply be. Part of the whole journey is to just be anyway, right? And so when you go into these places, since I really had not sat with Phyllis before, I didn't really say anything. I didn't do anything until the very end, and just brought her back into a grounding place, as she was coming out of it, just to let her know someone's here, I'm with you, and yes, it's coming to an end. And it doesn't feel very good because you want to stay. I mean, everybody wants to stay longer, no matter what the experience is. So, but when you come out of it, I'm about looking at these images and finding out what are their true attributions to your true being. Yes, you can feel thankfulness. You can feel many things. You can feel great love. You can feel all those things. To a certain extent, those are still fantasy. Those are not reality, because all of that has to be conjured in the waking world, in the hard world, where you are. Yeah. And this is, for me, the most important aspect of doing these particular master plant teachers. And I prefer to call them that. They're master plant teachers. They're teachers. They're beings just like you, like me. It's like going and talking to your grandmother, right? Your grandmother knows a lot about a lot of things, and if you want to learn, you'll go and ask her, and she'll teach you how to bake bread. She'll teach you how to grind meals. She'll teach you how to how to garden, how to do many things. This is exactly what these master plant teachers do as well. They are not gods. They are not above anything else. They are not to be worshipped. They're not any of those things. It's just simply a different form of communication. And when you're communicating with the plant world, since language is not their thing. They don't speak in language. They speak in imagery, and they can only speak to you through what you know. And this is the biggest difference when it comes to, we've had the wave of LSD, we had all of these periods of so-called enlightenment and growth, but humanity really is no further along than it ever was. And so the use of these is not necessarily helping the world at the moment. It can help an individual, but some people will also misinterpret whatever's going on inside those states and come back much more inflated, believing they're more than they actually are. We're all very powerful, but we are not going in to discover that we have a new identification. I'm a shaman. But that's not it. In fact, I'm really not about labels. I'm not about naming anything. I'm trying to actually remove the names and everything out of life. Trees are not trees anymore. But this takes great work. This takes great discipline to remove that. So when Phyllis
But
talks about,
let's talk a little about the labels with self.
yeah, well then
The
there's labels of self, and what you label in your mind.
About being
Well,
knowing what, but not who. That's
right.
what I liked about
Well, there's a labeling yourself in many different ways. You know, we see it going on right now. I mean, right now we have like this weird gender dysphoria thing going on where everything's getting a brand new label and it's expanding. I mean, we've pretty much taken up the whole alphabet now when it comes to, you know, trying to explain who a group of people are, you know. And that is, you know, for me, that is, that's part of illness. It's locking yourself into a belief structure and an idea that you believe you are, and in fact, you're not any of that. You just simply are. You're just simply a being. You inhabit a body, and all things are possible. It's all here in your head. If you want to believe that there has to be separation in your life, you created that. You created that yourself. There's no one else. And we can talk about indoctrination, we can talk about anything else. However, ultimately, it comes down to the individual. Do you choose that? Do you choose that? We often will choose many things and believe them just simply because somebody told us. Look at the story of Jesus. I mean, clearly, that is a bullshit story through and through. It has lots of merit because of what it represents, but the actual story can't possibly be real. So, you know, and history also indicates that that story is not real either. So, but we have so many people that actually believe this so strongly that, I mean, they will commit to believing in a form of hatred that they believe is love. And this is where we have to actually strip away all that stuff. You know, I've been talking to Phyllis, like, it's time to go beyond God. Time to go beyond that silly concept. It's, you know, I'm not saying that something isn't created, but stop and think about it. You actually have the capacity to even fathom one iota of how this ever came about and who or what did it. Well, that doesn't even matter. We're supposed to be here to have a human experience. And while we're here, we're supposed to feel, we're supposed to learn to be comfortable with being here. Part of really being comfortable is learning to strip away the labels, strip away the names, especially with your beliefs, It's because we lock ourselves into very specific ideas. I mean, through sexuality, through gender, through race, we have so many different ways of creating separation, fear, belief, politics, all of this stuff. It just constantly is breaking down everything into smaller and smaller names. We started off naming trees and animals, and now we name every aspect of ourselves. I'm a homemaker. Well, no, you're not. You're just a being. You know, I'm the high priest of so and so. I'm the reincarnation of Cleopatra. No. You are who you are today, and working through that power. That's all you have. Yeah. So we can tap into these other ideas and once again create concepts that, yes, I understand we need something sometimes to actually come to an understanding. So it's okay to adopt a particular idea for a little while, but as I say, don't attach to it. You know, bring it forward, use it as a tool, because everything is a tool. Everything is a tool. I mean, my basic tools are knives, so those are tools. Also, master plant teachers and the certain derivatives that come out of these different plants are also, you know, and some people would balk when I say, you know, cocaine is a teacher, heroin is a teacher, being an alcoholic is a teacher. Alcohol has its methods. Now, the ones that I just mentioned, they are not kind teachers. They're not nice. They will take you over the cliff. However, you know, as I've said in my own life, you know, back in the day, I had my own coke and meth problem, and even to this day, they are still my most significant teachers about raw life. Hard, dark, painful, and all the stuff that goes in with that. The lying, the cheating, the deceptions, the redirections, and, the self-delusion that I created through all of that. Now, those substances I used, the substances actually, they're inert without me. They do nothing. So taking them is my choice. So when we want to blame a substance, when we want to blame something, that's once again a belief system that we conjure in our head. Once again, you're part of everything. Everything is here. Everything is available. And when we say that using ayahuasca is better than using cocaine, that's a judgment. That is a different, I don't know where somebody needs to go in their life. And perhaps they need to be dragged over broken glass through 10 years of their life to get up and figure out how to learn to be grateful. And, in the end, this is where my pain and anguish really did take me. It taught me extreme gratitude. Gratitude to be alive. Gratitude is, cheap.
That's impressive too. That boy's got a brain. He's got seeds. I'm like,
I would like to help people understand that, when we do so much of this stuff, and no matter what you're doing in your life, whether you're a completely sober person or you never touched a cigarette in your life, the same rules apply to everybody. You may judge drugs, but you may be eating at McDonald's every day. And you may be eating poorly at home and drinking sodas and drinking Monster drinks. And you really don't see that as a problem because it doesn't really fit in your world as a problem. But if you're obese and have diabetes and all that stuff, then you're not addressing the right issues. It's about looking at oneself and realizing that anything one doesn't abuse. Sex can be abused. And more than just the few forms that come to mind immediately. Sex, everything has a good side and a bad side to it. Everything does. You just have to be willing to go there and break away from the ideas and concepts you have around it and what you believe somebody else is. To be honest with you, you don't know who anybody else is. You don't. You just don't.
Yeah. I wanted to go back to the concept you had about God. We need to move beyond God. And what I like about that is mainly because my 12 years as a missionary, God was something I had to figure out, again, mental, understand, so I could love and have a relationship with. And I'm like, the ideal of this being that's in control of everything was like, didn't really feel loving. And then I came to another understanding that, well, we are the gods of this planet, but yet we're not the gods of the planet. We are just part of this planet. And we are a part of an ecosystem and a system of beings. And it is in the unlabeling that we're able to, then I don't have to worry about your godliness or my godliness. I just have to worry about me and what am I in alignment with and what am I. Now, the interesting challenge becomes when I think of alignment, I think of spiritually and emotionally and being in gratitude in a space that way. But it is that the unnaming is that letting go. That unnaming becomes, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but names have a space for time.
Words are for communication. That's it.
Yeah.
And like you're doing right there, you're wanting to actually manifest a name, or a zebra doesn't know it's a zebra, celery doesn't know it's celery. You can call it that all day long, and it still will not identify with that. And you can give words power. They are very, very powerful. But they only have power if you make words yourself powerful. You know, somebody calls you a name, you know, what is it? The C word. That one really gets a lot of women in the States.
Ooh,
Right?
yeah.
But that word is just a word. It doesn't have any value until you give it a particular value. And this is what we do with everything. I mean, and right now we're in a time where we are so polarized that words that I knew in the 80s today do not even have the same meaning.
True.
And the way they're being used today are not the same meaning at all. So words themselves, due to our participation in them and our feeling around them, we can change them entirely. I mean, you know. So, I mean, at one time, you know, the word gay used to just simply mean happy. It wasn't attributed to anything at all. And now people will say, "Oh, that's fucking gay." You know, like it's now it's turning into another kind of word entirely. It's taken outside the frame of sexuality, even. When somebody says that's gay, it's not a sexual derivative, or, you know, it's not derogatory. It's just a word like anything else. So, because many of these people, they don't know what the previous meaning of these words were.
True.
They don't know what that was, and they're recreating new ways of using words. Language always changes and readapts. And yeah, and so. The further we go into the future, language will constantly change, and words that we used to use regularly are not even in the dictionary anymore. So this is really like, why hold a word? You know, if Webster's dictionary is going to drop 10,000 words a year to add 10,000 new words, words really don't have that much value, right?
They change.
They change. And you know, we move into times in our lives where words are simply describing for somebody a way to understand what they're looking at. But we take words, we take images and forms and turn them into higher, we give them more power than they need. I mean, look, Buddha and Jesus, look at what we've done with them. I mean, they're so elevated, they're asexual. They're bland, you know, they're white toast. And, you know, personally, the way Jesus described, I would never hang out with that guy, ever. You know, ever. You know, I don't want to be sitting around with a bunch of guys eating fish. You know, I want to be out playing, having a party. You know, and if any of these masters were true to themselves, this is exactly who they were. They were real. They were genuine people who stopped caring what other people thought of them. It's the only way to really get a message out. Really, only way to get people to see that there was. But then what people went and did is turn it all into religion and dogma, because they themselves did not actually want to do any of the work.
Right.
And that is what today's problem is, you know, and what Phyllis was experiencing going into the darkness. This is why the planet is not actually seeing any growth. It's because it's the one place we don't want to go. It's the one place we don't want to be, because we think that the pain that we are suffering now, you know, with our daily life is far less than what is in that darkness. When in actuality, your liberation from pain is in that darkness. Your liberation from your suffering is in that darkness. Find the things that will help you become stronger. It requires great discipline. And above all, it requires a level of self-honesty that, which is also one of the reasons why unnaming everything to me is very, very important. Is because I can no longer use a word or an idea as an escape. Break it down and take away all of that, and then really look at the substance of it without words. And it has no other option but to show you what it really is. And if you're willing to actually look at the real thing and then say, oh, well, I really blew that way out of proportion. Oops. You know.
And the best part is that though I could see that the answers I was looking for was in the darkness, it wasn't in the state that that answer was going to come.
Yeah, that's all.
I knew it was like, okay, well, the work is
right.
All right, you got to go.
And you bring up something that I wanted to mention while ago when you were talking was like a faster way. It's actually sort of a misnomer that any of these things are faster. What you do is you get illuminated, but that doesn't necessarily mean you'll do any of the work. The guy who sits down for 40 years in meditation is doing really hard work. But to go in and get a glimpse of it and then pick and choose off the shelf, well, I'll take care of that. I'll take care of this, but that doesn't seem like a big issue. Well, those it's oftentimes it's the small stone in your shoe that renders you helpless after a mile. It's not the giant car in the middle of the road that you can walk around. It's not the large obstacles many times. It's the small ones. It's the tiny things that you're not paying attention to that actually are the things that will bring everything down. And so there are no shortcuts with any of this. It's not really a shortcut because you do have to actually do the work in your real life, which requires the same disciplines that Lao Tzu, Buddha, Jesus, all those other masters spoke about. You still have to come back to the same place where you have to do the work. You have to do the work for yourself and really try and stop taking in other people's opinions. They're simply opinions. And remember, everyone sees the world through their own experience. So when Phyllis and I sit here, I have to listen with a whole different set of ears with each individual, because the way I want to describe things is not the way she has come to learn to describe them. So instead of getting hung up on words, I have to look beyond that word. Like, all right, well, what is she actually saying when she's using this type of language? Because it doesn't work with my language, but yet the concept of what she's saying is really there. Like, okay, it's there. Like when she talks about the metaphors, well, there are metaphors nowadays, there weren't before, but there are more of a metaphor today of the priest and the oracle. They don't really exist in the same capacity they did back then. And also, they weren't always accurate. There are several times where it really went wrong for the Greeks. But there was enough accuracy and there was enough of the elevation of people in general to bring up the general masses. Most of the leaders that ever went to use the oracle really had nothing to do with themselves. It had to do with war. It had to do with, and in fact, ayahuasca originally was used exactly for that too. It was not used as a spiritual thing. It was not used as any of that. It was used as a predictor of peace and war. So even from the early days of this visionary thing, we have turned it yet into something completely different.
We want for ourselves.
Right, exactly. And we
trying to control it.
We always, well, I mean, ayahuasca has turned into a huge dogmatic type of religious idea in some ways now. I mean, it's not religion in terms of religion, but I'll tell you what, man, you mentioned dieta to some people, and boy, they'll throw a fit about what you have to eat and what you don't have to eat, or what you can't eat, or how much sex you can have, or blah 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 blah. And none of those things are actually true. They're not. Believe me, I did it all to try it. I actually went out of my way to break all the rules, and it was all bullshit. And people lock themselves into these ideas about you can't mix teachers, you can't,
right.
I say, listen, if you're going to go and mix two substances together, you're on your own. You chose that. And once it's inside you, good luck. That's a choice. And I would say if you're not good at mixing chemicals, and funny, we talk about not mixing marijuana and ayahuasca or whatever, but yet, I know people who will do coke, alcohol, weed, and whatever freaking pill they'll find in the street and pop it all in their mouth and they don't think a thing about it. And there's no healer involved, there's no curandero involved, but yet they're really, really in the midst of learning.
Having a hard lesson, though, maybe.
Right. Well, you know, a lot of these things where you go back and people are going to ayahuasca, San Pedro, Iboga, any of those, is to try and recover from what they did to themselves when they were using those other teachers. So these are just clarifying. Yeah, you went down a road. Whoa, you really went down a road, but that was your choice.
Yeah.
That was your choice, and own it. Own it. Stop regretting it. Stop fighting it. Stop thinking there's something wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. You made the choice. You made those decisions to go forward. You made every decision for what you did in your life. Not once did a can of beer come up and say, hey, I got a plan for you. It didn't. You went and bought that beer. You went and bought that bottle of vodka every night and polished it off. It had nothing to do with the vodka and everything to do with your place within yourself that you're not dealing with. And so vodka becomes the problem. But is that true? Once again, a thing we have up in our head about, you know, we have to have some type of antagonist in our life. You know,
outside of ourselves.
We've got God and we've got Lucifer, right? I mean, they're these
and we're just a football between them, right?
Right, and it really it actually is not like that at all. It is not quite so cut and dry. We do live in a duality. However, that duality is incredibly broad, and as I mentioned before, there's a fine razor line between the sacred and the profane. Like, you know, for your birthday, we had the kink party where some people in town consider that absolutely profane. Why would we do that in a Catholic neighborhood? Blah, 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 blah. But then there are other people that is the way to expression, creativity, art, letting go and letting the body have fun. You know, and we are our own restriction. We are our own restriction to everything we go in. Because you don't like it doesn't mean that you don't actually like it. It means you think you don't like it. Now, there are things that we have experienced that we, in the end, are like, yeah, that's not really my cup of tea. Bungee jumping, not my cup of tea. But, you know, it's there. It's there for anyone. And I'm certainly not going to judge every person that bungee jumps. What an idiot! You know, because it wasn't for me. It is definitely fun for lots of people. Jumping out of planes, fun for a lot of people.
Adrenaline rushing, yeah.
You know, I mean, but it's pushing the limits, and a lot of those things. You know, some call it adrenaline rush, but I actually call it facing a belief system that you had about yourself and breaking it. That's it. You know, it's not, for some people, it is not about an adrenaline rush. It is about facing a serious fear.
Yeah.
You know, and there are a lot of people that after they have jumped out of a plane can do certain things they were not able to do before. It cleared up a lot of issues for them. There are people who have had sexual experiences that were outside the box for them that changed their entire life. You know, there are men who were so afraid of homosexuality that eventually broke down and had it, realized that's what they preferred. I mean, but kept themselves from it for years and years and years because of a social idea about who they would be if they chose that or those labels, you know. And another reason why we should take away the descriptions of ourselves, because it actually frees us up to be more of what we actually can be. You know, I'm not, for myself, I'm not any one thing. And as you mentioned, I know what I am about, and I know what I'm coming into, but I don't believe I will ever know who I actually am until the end of my life. I'm an unfinished project.
Mhm.
I'm still going. I'm still doing it. I can probably describe who I am to a certain extent, but not completely.
But even then, it's still
It's
based
still
on
based
what I've done
That's right.
and where I've been. And
and within that, yeah,
I'm going to say, we live in a time of identity uh, run amok. Run amok, and that is that polarizing, that is that individualizing and separatist that we're doing to ourselves. Because when we speak of unity, it's all condensed into one. There is no you or them or us. It becomes all of us.
Right.
And that has been an interesting theme also in my journeys, is that kind of that comes up for me, is that all of us, that it's all of us that we are, that I felt like I'm going through this for. And yet through the different journeys I've gone through, it has been the consistency of, I'm always surprised what comes up out of my own emotions. I'm always surprised at where did that come from? I didn't expect to have that kind of experience or feeling or emotional identity. And I'm just like, oh, okay. And they're emotions happy with.
Right. Well, when those things come up, I want people to go into them. Go into it deeply.
Mhm.
Actually, go into it. Don't try and resist it or fight it. Listen, if something upsets you, go into it. Feel it. Don't attach to it. Which is this is where discipline, real discipline, actually comes from. Mind discipline is when you enter these states where you feel like you cannot actually think anymore. You're so upset that a particular incident that happened during the day where somebody challenged you, well, we took it personally, and that in of itself is something that starts the whole chemical adrenaline thing going inside the body. We're like, ah! And then we spend all day plotting revenges, plotting, how we're going to get out of this situation, our little lies to paint ourselves better, whatever. I mean, I'm human, believe me. I have done these very things. Oh, I am not. Oh, different picture. But once we get to a place where the mental discipline, when you do get upset, is breathe. I mean, this is what actual meditation is for. Meditation is not to find God. It's not to find anything else. It is to calm you down. It is to calm us and put us into a centered space where, at that point, we have the ability to become objective rather than subjective. And this is what saves people's lives, is becoming objective rather than subjective. You remain subjective, and yes, you're going to remain pissed off. You go into an objective state after breathing, and you can find many times when somebody actually has become objective about the situation, because they'll come back immediately like, oh, wow, I'm so sorry. I took this in a whole other direction, and I stopped. I did not stop to consider you actually are having a really bad day, and I made it all about me. I went off and I was further pissed off at you because you're having a bad day. So, yeah, I'm really sorry about that. Sorry about your bad day. Anyway, what you addressed me with, let's sit and talk about that, because you do have a point. However, because where you were, it just, it hit me like a hammer in the head. That took me a minute to get over that. And you have the right to back out at any situation if you don't know how to deal with it, instead of just flying off the handle and saying whatever comes out of your mouth, which can often make that situation so much worse. Yeah. So much worse. So,
all right. So let me ask, before going into a journey, the teacher, you're going in front of a teacher. I always think, if I'm a student, I need to have notes, I need to prepare, I need to have my list of questions, I need to be ready. How do we go into the medicine?
Well, not like that.
Okay.
Not like that at all. It's not going to address anything that you think you want addressed. That's not what they do. And that's why you have to go in with I like to try and get people to focus on trying to just simply be the observer. Try not to describe. Try not to detail what's going on, and try not to explain to yourself what you think it is. Your brain does not have that capacity to understand this, which is very difficult, and it oftentimes requires, even within that, to breathe. Like, okay, just keep going. Don't detail it. You can observe it. You can see it. But wait until you have come to a place where it's settling in as information beyond the words. And that doesn't happen here. That happens here. And this is where the discipline afterwards comes, is taking what you received here and dropping it down into here so it actually makes some sense. This is the only place it's going to make sense, because the heart does not use words to describe its world, right? And so when it comes to sitting down, and the other thing I've mentioned to you before is about intention. Your intention is already within you. The whole reason you're sitting in that room, the reason you bought the ticket to go to wherever you're going to go, your intention was already driving you to do those things. It's not the one that comes up in your head. That's ego. That's that. Oh, I want no. It's yet another form of begging prayer, as I call it. You know, give me this, give me this, give me this, give me this. And the universe really, one thing I've found is it does not respond to demands. It barely responds at all sometimes. But I ask people to go in and realize, you know, what is coming up are all made up by you. They're all coming up. And people can say that there are, no, I encountered beings. I saw these. I saw these. And many people can have the same thing, but they don't take into consideration we are actually all connected to the same consciousness. Any of that stuff is out there to actually pull in and observe. And yes, there are strings of consciousness that everybody does get to see. Everybody has that opportunity. But there are also many, many things that are just truly being made from you, from
the dream state.
Right.
Really.
And so when you go into so you're in a place where childhood trauma is coming up, and you end up spending the entire night crying and crying and crying. And then you decide to go back in to try and deal with it, but then find yourself back in that same place, crying and crying and crying and crying. Another night, you go back in, and yet again, you find yourself in a very sad point. Maybe not crying as hard, but still in a sad place. Now, at some point, I would say that this is where you're choosing to actually sit and stare at that. You're actually, ayahuasca is showing you how much energy you are actually putting into looking at your misery. It's not asking you to look at it and heal it. It's asking you to stop looking at it. Stop looking at that. You have that choice to redirect.
It's your fixation.
Your choice always. And you'll find in many of these master plan teachers that when you're doing this, and you do make a choice to not look at that anymore. Oh, well, I get it. I'm done. I don't want to look at I know this feeling already. Why am I sitting here for 2 nights in a row really getting the feeling intensely? Because this medicine is trying to show you. Do you see how much you love looking at this? And how much display you love to make about it? You're in the room crying, gaining all this attention because you're looking at something that you can look away from because you're not actually hurt by it. And that's what it's trying to tell you, you're not hurt by it. Your brain wants to hold on to a certain form of victimization.
I call it a masochistic high. You're going back to that same pain.
Right.
Because you're getting something from it.
You are. I mean, you're getting the attention of the coordinator. You're getting the attention of the facilitators. You're getting the attention during the next day during integration talks. You're getting all it's still, even though you're in the premise of I'm in medicine and healing, when you identify with your victim and the victimhood that you have experienced in this world, then of course your ego immediately is going to take that and use it to its advantage. One of the things the ego loves to do is mimic what you think you know and then turn it on you. And the next thing you know is you're an egomaniac running some seminar, you know, talking about how you have the answer. Well, I don't have anybody's answer. And I'll tell you that directly. What I'm expressing to you is what I found on my own. It works for me. But I can say that there are many, many, many other masters out there that have actually figured that out too. And they're just simply saying, you have that option. You can live any life you want. If you want to live in misery, live in misery. Nature does not give a shit how much you suffer. You have to give a shit about how much you suffer. And I've really come to believe that the whole experience is that we're not really supposed to change anything. We're supposed to allow everything to move as it is. And when you say that we are a we are a we. But we can only work with we when we come to know the me. There's a me inside that has a story, that has a belief system. In fact, those belief systems in many people are so strong they will kill themselves. They're so strong. I mean, how many times have we seen beautiful people, amazing people, take their lives because they thought they were worthless? That story is so powerful, and that story is predominant in the world right now, that we're worthless, that we have no value, that no one loves us, no one wants us, and what I do have is not what I wanted. Well, that's all not true either, because everything that you have in your life, believe it or not, you made the decision to get there. And if the result is not what you had in mind, then you had an expectation about where you were supposed to be. And well, that's a knife in the neck, you know.
Expectation, oh, yeah.
Right, you know, I mean, and that's the other thing, by unlabeling everything and deconstructing the verbalization or the word content of mind, you get to a place where you cannot actually have expectation anymore because there's nothing to look at. And, you know, just let whatever will be. There's even a song about it, you know. And, you know, and all these things that I'm saying today, I'm not actually saying anything new. All this stuff has been handed down for thousands and thousands of years. We talk about the priest and the oracle. They also tried to pass this information down. Some got it, but we don't know about them. We don't know about men. We only know about the ones that did conquest. We only know about the ones that shaped and formed civilization, which we now know is just a load of crap. You know, civilization, yeah, it has its cool things, but for the most part, civilization is the complete and utter domestication and separation of man from society, to be turned into a drone, to be turned into a feeder, into a consumer, into something that doesn't give a shit about what's really around it other than its own selfish need. Yeah. And we need to come into our being to own ourselves and realize that we are not the only ones here. And when we go into these medicines, that does really, ayahuasca in particularly really tries to show you mushrooms equally. You're not the only life form here. You are not the only living thing. You're not the only thing that laughs. You're not the only thing that cries. You're not the only thing that can feel lonely. And we justify our own stuff by actually taking that away from nature. That they have the ability to, that all nature has something less than we do. We're the last ones here. We're an amalgam of everything that was already here. So what you have was given to you by what's out there.
You know, I hope as humans, because we have that little flaw that we think we're the needs bees. But I kind of giggle and hope that other beings have the same kind of flaws. You know, that, you know, they can just laugh at us humans, like those are the trees that have that web of connectedness. I hope they
Well, I think animals oftentimes show you that they're just as foolish as we are.
Oh, well, that's true.
I mean, you have to pay attention.
Yeah.
I mean, this is
Yeah.
it. Pay attention to nature.
Yeah.
When you pay attention to actually pay attention to nature,
Mhm.
you realize they have the same guffaws, the same moment. I mean, how many of you have been walking down a street and saw a stray dog in an alley laying there, clearly sad, clearly alone, and it feels it.
Mhm.
It knows it.
Mhm.
But because it's not a human, it doesn't have the same. When you come home from work, if you have dogs, some of those dogs have been sitting in front of the door for 20 minutes, already knowing you were coming home. In fact, they have more awareness of things than you do, than we all do, right? I mean, they're so much more aware of, they have much more precognition than we do, because they're not filling their minds with frivolous futures that don't exist, or horrible pasts that you believe happened to you. And some of those things may have happened to you, but if you stop and think about them, did they happen to you in the way that you're really thinking about it? Or are you making it more? Did you add to it? Are you adding more emotion to something that really, if you pay attention to it long enough and realize it happened 30 years ago, 20 years ago, you're still alive, you still had dinner last night, you still got a drink of water this morning, you still have friends that call you. That trauma that happened to you then, it actually has not stopped any of us from moving forward until we believe it so much that it has stopped us, that we stop ourselves.
That's, I think, the real point. We stop ourselves with our beliefs. And as I look at my own African American community and the division lines for Americans on race politics, age politics, sex politics, and going, it's just a camp we're choosing to stand on, a belief system that really has no effect on our daily life if we choose it. But it can color our entire world when we are wearing those filters of beliefs.
That's right. I mean, and that's it. I mean, really, like, to deconstruct our belief systems is actually one of the toughest things that we have to do. And I mean, we talk about indoctrination, about following the state and all that stuff, blah blah blah. But we actually deliberately do it to ourselves. We choose things. I mean,
what label you wearing? Democrat, Republican,
I mean, we do it to ourselves,
right.
and we love to constantly blame something on our so-called elected officials because we want them to be responsible, not us. The plastic problem in the ocean has nothing to do with any person who's running anything. It has everything to do with the consumer. We keep consuming that. We keep disregarding it again and again and again and again. And we find our justifications as to why we can disregard it while at the same time banning straws. Oh, we're winning. We banned straws and single-use plasticware.
Yes.
Well, no, we didn't.
No.
I mean, we've got enough tires on this planet to circle the Earth 5 or 6 times. We have so much shit in the ground. We are the ones not stopping that. We are the ones that believe we can just put somebody in some office somewhere and they'll take care of it. That is not how it works. We collectively, and this is what these plant medicines, I believe, are trying many times to show you, is you have to get your ass up off your couch, get out into the world, stop being afraid, and clean this up. We are supposed to be caretakers. Your politics has no value to nature. Your religion has no value to the earth. They do not operate on the same mechanism you do. The earth and the sun have their own relationship that has nothing to do with human beings. We're a side effect.
Mhm.
We're a side effect of that relationship.
Mhm.
If that relationship did not exist, we would not
Mhm.
exist. So, are you really the most powerful thing here? No, not by any means. There are little bugs that can take you out. Remember that.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
the greatest enemy of all mankind actually is an unseen virus. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
it could wipe out millions of us in a month
Mhm.
without any remorse whatsoever. At least when we go to war with somebody and we start wiping them out, some of us will have remorse.
Yeah.
But not a single virus actually has any remorse for killing your ass.
Mhm. Okay.
You know what I mean? So, I mean, stop and really look at the dynamics of where we are in the world. And true integration is not just integrating what you've discovered about yourself, but integrating it into the world that you actually are participating in. There is a harmony. All of nature is showing you that there's a harmony and a balance. And the more we reflect this imbalance, the more nature is also forced into imbalance. Nature only operates on balance. And when things become unbalanced, it balances them very, very quickly. And one of those balances is extinction. And, you know, we we actually want to move forward. We have children that need to learn these basics. It's our responsibility to make ourselves centered and whole. It's our responsibility to get over ourselves, get over our stories, get over our belief systems. That way, when we do focus on children, we're there completely with their expression. Many children are already showing you what they want to learn when they want to learn it. And we wait and do sex education until what we're in our teens, just prior to puberty or whatever. But most children are already showing you that they're much more interested in learning sex education when they're 3 and 4. You know, what is that? What is that? Why do they have that and I don't? What is that? And I'll tell you what. I mean, even to a certain extent, it's so in our consciousness that I can remember playing doctor while hiding somewhere with kids, you know, so that adults didn't see us. You know, we all did those kinds of things. We're out playing doctor and exploring each other's bodies. We have no idea what we're doing or what we're looking at, but we know that there's an interest there. You know, at the same time, we're digging up worms, we're pulling flowers, we're walking, you know, we love what we're playing with dogs, we're learning how to connect with animals. And you'll often find that many little kids, animals are not afraid of little kids. You know, deer will walk right up to a little kid. It will not walk up to an adult, but it'll walk up to a little kid because it recognizes the sheer innocence that it still has, and that it doesn't have the eye of, oh, you're meat, you know, oh, you're less than me, or whatever. And nature constantly tries to remind us that we are of the same value. And when all of other nature goes, so will we. We're not any different. And I love how we seem to have this elevated idea that, yes, everything's going. Lots of animals are dying. Bees are dying out. We're having an insect apocalypse or something at the moment. And we're not really going to be affected by any of that. You know, it's still the daily routine goes on. I don't see anything changing. And we still have another Star Wars movie coming out again. We have we have repeats of history constantly coming back to keep us established in this one frame. So we don't leave the frame. There's very little coming outside the box. I mean, how many of the same movie are out there? How many of the same television shows are out there? I mean, we're not stepping out of the box. We're not trying to teach ourselves anything. It's all escapism. And through that escapism, now it's to a point where we just make whatever we want up and tell it. Facts are not facts anymore. Facts are just, well, yeah, I know they used to say that, but we all know now that it's what I think it is. Right? So,
Right. I knew it all along. So
integration is really about taking real steps to break down your belief structure and reintegrate back into the natural world the way it's supposed to be and the way you will harmonize it. Because it is truly your belief systems, your stories, and your words that are causing you pain. That's it.
Ouch.
That's the only thing actually causing you mental anguish. Now, there is physicality, that's very, very different. There are lots of things that cause actual physical pain. But if you're sitting there, if you're someone who's in anguish and you're not physically injured, you're doing that to yourself.
Oh, okay. I'm working on it. I'm working on it, but thank you. All right. So we do a group gathering here in Vilcabamba, but I wanted to offer to this audience and whoever hears this opportunities to work with Gary individually and online. Skype or
Yes.
one of those things will
Mhm.
work, and sit with them and have the time and have someone go through your stuff
Right.
and make sense of this, so you're not just
I would very much
getting
love
high.
any of you out there that really are actually having some difficulties with the next steps that you're trying to take, or you've run into something that you really don't understand. Now you have to understand, I talk about all this stuff about stories and descriptions and words and all this stuff, but yet I understand that there's a place that does actually have to come out. It does have a certain amount of meaning to each individual wherever they are. That is a form of communication. Now, one of the things that I would really like to help you do is help you get beyond those words, get beyond those structures, because most of you who actually have done ayahuasca or San Pedro, you very much understand when I say that you're getting this information like that. It is not coming in words. It is not coming in. You're getting entire concepts that actually are manifesting within you in the twinkling of an eye, where you go, by the time you say you get it, it is all there. Like, oh. And then your brain's like, I really have to describe that. And in that description is where we can often get lost. So I would very much like to help people. Emotional blockages, excuse me, emotional blockages, just not understanding where you're at. Now, I can't say I'm really going to do much for you other than actually just help clarify things if you even want that. I'm not somebody who claims to be a shaman or any of that. I'm not a healer. You're a healer. I'm a conduit between one perspective and your perspective. And I'm just going to allow my own personal experience illuminate some of the things that you have discovered, because our stories are all different, but we all feel exact pain in you and pain in me. They're the same pain. And there's no quantitative level of that. I mean, when somebody, oh, well, I haven't lived the hardship you have. Yeah, well, have you suffered pain? Yes, then you suffered pain.
Pain is pain.
Pain is pain. It doesn't matter if you were beaten every day of your life or you were locked in a mansion with everything you ever wanted and could not get out. There are different levels of experiencing anguish. And we like to, once again, use those stories to make our pain special. And our pain's not special. Our story is special. Our story is interesting. And how do we work that story out so that that story actually has some meaning in your real life? And because in general, I don't believe there's meaning to anything. But there are momentary glimpses of meaning. And meaning is what you house within you. The meaning that I have in life is not the same meaning that Phyllis has in life. Where she got to where she is, it doesn't mean the same to me. And what I have done, she can look at it and she can say, oh, I can see streaks of what you have gone through that I also have gone through. I recognize that, and I'm not going to be the person who ever says, well, you don't know, blah, blah, blah. You know exactly what you feel. You just don't know how to describe it, or you don't know how to get around it. Or you don't really want to look at it in a way because you think it's going to burn more than it is. I mean, the example of bungee jumping. I mean, this is really like how many people will stand on the edge of that and like, oh, I can't. But there seems to be every reason that you can. You're hooked up.
You pay for it.
You've got all these people watching. You've got everybody. I mean, you're in a space that's available. The only thing stopping you from jumping over the edge is your own belief that you're going to fall, which is the whole reason you're there, is to fall. So, this is it. I mean, we're stepping up to destroy the thing that we think we are. And when the world comes around to say it's time, I don't know, it's way too high. It is way too high. Check that bungee again. Let's do a double check and a triple check. Oh, it's dark. Time to go home. We push through and it's always the first step. I mean, it sounds like a cliche, but really it is. The first step is the hardest step, is because you stepping into the unknown.
The darkness.
Right. And learning how to take what's in that darkness and turn it into your absolute strength and power for yourself, not for others. Really, that doesn't matter. What matters is how you are in this world. Are you comfortable? Are you satisfied? Are you satiated? You do not have to have anything. You can be homeless and still embody that. It's the story of how you put yourself in those situations. Either you don't want to be homeless, and because you don't want to be homeless people suck, or you are homeless, and once again, you're caught between being looked at by society a certain way and not wanting to help yourself in another way. And so we all have our stories. We all have the thing. We all have our little thing to keep us going. But true integration is getting over all of those particular little stories and understanding that nobody's really any different.
And that's what's really great about having the integration, I'm calling it. What he's doing is coaching you through it, if I may say it that way.
Yeah,
because it is a mirror into self. It's the journey. And it's a high caliber dream state that will open up your story to you.
Right.
And if you use it that way and then take the next step of incorporating it into your life,
right,
then you benefit.
Right. And, listen, I don't judge anybody. Listen, if you knew my own story, I do not have an iota of room to judge anybody for anything. So, I mean, I've run the gamut from, sleaze to profit. and listen, if you want to come forward, you really want to share those deep and hurtful things. I want you to know that when you really are bringing them to a place where I may not care how much pain you're in, but I do care about the situation you're in. Your pain is your own. I can't carry that for you. But what I can do is embrace you in the moment that you are feeling this pain and really say, I get it. Oh my gosh. Let's get through this. Let me help you. Let me just help a little bit. And it's an incremental thing. I know that some of my darkest depressions, it took a long time, no matter how many times people told me things. It took me a long time to still come to those understandings for myself, which in hindsight seems ridiculous, but that's how bonded to my story I really was. People would tell me, you're not what you think you are. That's not what I see at all. Well, you don't know me. But they do know me.
Right.
They do know.
Yeah.
The
honesty is we don't know ourselves.
That's right. We don't want to admit that, we often love to take the position of weakness rather than strength because it's easier to sit in weakness.
Ooh, probably feels more comfortable.
Well, it does because, and it gains attention. It's also very addictive. Misery is addictive. It's just as addictive as any other thing out there. It's as addictive as McDonald's. In fact, McDonald's is oftentimes a
drug of choice.
Well, I mean, it is its own misery.
Yeah.
And it reflects a certain misery. So we do want to all come together here. We're not. I'm not out to save or change the world. That's not mine. It's just way too big for me. I'm not there for that. But what I am all about is if you are suffering, if you are in pain, then the only thing I would like to ever do is just help you get over that obstacle so that you can actually get out into the life and live and try and do your best and play your part as best you possibly can in this world, bringing everybody together so we eventually have a collective consciousness that says, by all of us loving ourselves first and giving to others, because that's really, giving to others is the ultimate.
Yeah.
But you cannot effectively give if you're not giving anything to yourself. If you're constantly robbing from yourself and playing the role of charity while actually playing the role of victim and not realizing what your place on stage is, your place on, you're not playing the right role. Look at the role you're actually playing.
Right.
And we can actually make a lot of difference. You have to make the ultimate difference. And I told Phyllis before, I consider myself the tour guide of hell. I can show you the way out, but I certainly cannot make you leave it. But I can wander around through hell with you until you finally decide to step through the exit yourself. And then I'll run back to the middle of hell and find somebody else looking for the door. And I've spent so much time in those hellish, dark places in many different forms that I feel quite qualified to walk everyone through hell and help them out. I know where the exits are, but I cannot ask you to leave until you're ready. But I can be there with you and help illuminate where those points are within yourself, how to exit. And take your life back, take your strength back, be proud of yourself and honor yourself, and above all, be grateful that you get to experience this miserable thing we're doing. Because it is beautiful.
It is beautiful.
I mean, it's crazy. We can look at a forest fire and we can see the extreme beauty in the destruction. This is exactly what we are. We are gloriously beautiful destruction. And we see what happens when we bring that all together. It creates more life, more healthy life. So let yourself burn down, let yourself burn and enjoy the beauty of how much you are actually feeling. I mean, it's pretty remarkable that we can feel so much that we can't bear it anymore. And, but there are ways to have the same grand feelings and not want to destroy yourself or turn on yourself at any point because of them. You are worth it. Every one of us is absolutely worth what we're doing.
We're here to do it.
And once we understand that we are all, Shakespeare said it best, we are all actors on stage. We all have a role to play. We all have our little thing. We're in a game. And when we take the game too seriously, then we're not having fun anymore. And what do most games have? Most games have contrast. You have some type of thing on the board that step back 6 spaces. Now I'm losing. You're not. You're just playing the game. And we've how many people have we watched have breakdowns playing Monopoly? Well, if you're going to have breakdown playing Monopoly, you are going to have the same breakdown in life. So this is not a game to win. This is simply a game to participate in and find out how best to keep the game going. And if we can try to keep this game going without destroying the playing board or the pieces that actually make the game, that would be really nice. Yeah. Stop chewing the damn pieces of the game. We're running out of pieces. But we're all playing this game. We're all playing it brilliantly. And we, our judgments about all kinds of things are what cause us to recoil. We look at war, we look at pedophilia, we look at so many things as we put very specific targets on them and call them evil, call them bad, call them other things. But we have to understand that we are the ones that create all this. This is not an evil outside of us. This is the evil within us that is doing this. There's no God force. There's no counter force to this. It is us. We make those decisions. When we choose to hurt somebody, we have chosen to hurt that person.
Yeah.
It did not come from any other force than your
Belief.
right here,
Right there.
right there.
Own it, baby. Own it.
That's
All
right.
right. Well, that's why I had to bring him, y'all, because it's like it just brings it right home to you, and it's like, oh, it's about you, and it isn't about the purple elephant in the room. It is about your elephant in your room. So thank you for joining, and we will be back. We'll do more stories. We got lots of stories, and I want you to hear some of his stories. And following on Patreon to say thank you, I will put Gary's contact information so you can reach him directly. You can find my Oracle services, as was looking at the charts and coaching and counseling on the relationships in this reality and through the journeys, and take advantage of them. We're here to help and here of service.
To your health and life.
Namaste, y'all. Bye.
Thank you.
Kitty. Kitty. Kitty.
How was